All right, welcome everyone to a Wednesday episode of the Call Sheet Daily podcast here at the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Kevin Smith. This is normally the day we call Whiteboard Wednesday, where we have on coaches to talk about the X's and O's, the scheme of the great game of football. But I have a special guest today, and we're going to get into a much deeper dive into the world of football. Really thrilled to have former NFL general manager and longtime commentator Mike Mayock joining me for today's show. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, Kev. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm so grateful for you coming on today. I met Mike last week at a great event in Ocean City where I coach, obviously, the Battle at the Beach. We saw some great football. What was your reaction to that event, Mike?
I love that event. I call it the War at the Shore. And I grew up in Philly, and the Jersey Shore has always been a big deal. And I got a place in Ocean City, and I love that event. I think is so cool. I've been there last few years. I wanted to go on Friday to that Malvern LaSalle game, which ended in a very controversial call at the end of the game, because my dad coached at Malvern, my son played at Malvern, so there's some Malvern roots with me. But a chance for the people at the beach to see IMG, who probably had 30 Division I kids, to see East St. Louis come in and compete against a North Jersey team, Bergen Catholic. I think it gives you an opportunity to kind of benchmark where Ocean City High School is, where all the other high schools are, and give you a look at how fortunate you are. Even if you have 2 or 3 Division I kids, you're really fortunate. I mean, in a high school program, let alone to take a step back and say, watch IMG jog onto that field and realize that they had 6 or 7 offensive linemen with Division I offers. I mean, more than their entire, so if you're a football guy and just want to go appreciate the game of football, that's a great event.
It really is. And, you mentioned it, and just looking at the caliber of the athletes and the speed at which the game was being played at a high school level. I mean, we have a pretty good program at Ocean City. That was something completely different. So our kids even recognized it. They were a little bit starstruck watching some of these kids walk onto the field.
Yeah, and you know what? What was it? Winslow Township that played against IMG, and I'll tell you what. I thought their skill players were really good. Winslow, it just inside they were going to have a problem with IMG.
Yeah, we played Winslow a couple years ago, and in one year we gave them a battle. The next year they kind of ran around us. We didn't have the speed to compete with them. But let's get into your football path, because you've had a fascinating life in football. You were drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. You were out of football for a while, came back in as a longtime analyst, and then were the general manager with the Raiders. That's a fantastic path. Tell us a little bit about your football journey.
Oh, you don't have enough time, Kev. I mean, my
you can
dad,
do the succinct version.
Yeah, I'm going to do the abridged version here. And I'm the oldest of 7. We had 5 boys. All 5 boys played college football. My dad was the offensive line coach at University of Penn when I was a kid, and then he went back to coaching in high school at Haverford School, and all 5 of us played at Haverford School. 2 of us were fortunate enough to be coached by my dad, who I played for Parcells, I played for Belichick. In all honesty, I think my dad was every bit as good a teacher as those 2 guys, so I have so much respect for high school teachers, coaches. I can't even begin to tell you. My journey was a little different. I got cut by the Giants my 3rd year there. I had a real bad knee. I was a graduate of Boston College. I went into commercial real estate where I was for 18 years, but I realized within 6 months I couldn't live without football. And I just started to, I started knocking on doors. I went to Ridley High School and offered to do their games for free on the radio. I went to Westchester Henderson, same offer. So I did games on the radio for free for a couple of years. Then I sent that tape up to ESPN, and New Jersey Network hired me. I did a couple of years as a sideline reporter. ESPN hired me as a sideline reporter. And Kev, I didn't really want to talk to moms and mascots, but I was a no-name. If I wanted to get into the football world, I had to do whatever they asked me to do. I did a bunch of games on the sideline in Canada. I started getting some games. Every bad college game at ESPN I got. I never could make enough money to take care of my family, which is why I was in commercial real estate for 18 years. And slowly I began to climb that ladder. And ultimately the NFL Network came into play. And I took an 80% pay cut to become their draft guy. I never looked back. The money didn't matter to me. It was finally an opportunity to get full-time into what I would love to do.
That's a fascinating path, and really for a lot of coaches out there who are interested in moving up in the coaching profession, it's probably a similar story, man. You have to be willing to move around almost year by year. You mentioned Bill Parcells. I went to college with his daughter Jill,
Yep.
and they lived in, I believe, 10 cities in 11 years as she was growing up, as he just went through the college ranks job to job before landing with the Giants. Is it really just a matter of perseverance?
Boy, I think it's a matter of passion. I think it's a matter of perseverance. You don't know what an individual, and look, I've been around coaches my whole life, and I think it's more common in the coaching business that you jump all over. And I think a big part of that is if you're married, you got to have somebody that's all in it with you with that passion, because I think the attrition rate, what I saw over the years, were the marriages that made it were really strong. You know, they were all in. And if you were the head coach at Ocean City High School, we were all in every week on Ocean City High School. No different than if you were the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, family is all in, and that becomes a central theme in what everybody's doing. Unfortunately, the flip side was if the family wasn't all in, it typically didn't work very well. It's a hard deal, like you said, to move around and be in, 8 different cities in 10 years. It's brutal on the families. I mean, I had a bunch of my coaching buddies with the Raiders. Their families weren't even in Vegas with us. They were coming from a different city. Kids were in high school. You don't want them. So I just think that there's a sacrifice to be made, and guys like you and me have a passion for it. It's the other people that it's really difficult on, because we're chasing a dream.
Yeah, interesting. I've been very fortunate to be with a woman who is a huge football fan and is all in as well. She's been the cheerleading coach at Ocean City High School for a long time.
You see, and that's healthy for you and the kids and your wife, and
yeah,
that's awesome, man. And that's how my family grew up. All 7 kids were all in on Haverford School football.
Yeah. So what did you, throughout your broadcasting career, you had an opportunity to see, obviously, a ton of football. You mentioned Canada. That's a whole different experience up there. What did you learn about the game that you didn't previously knew as a result of being a broadcaster? How did it change your perspective?
Whew, man, the NFL Network gig I was so fortunate to get that, because for basically 20 years, my job was to be in all 32 NFL buildings, right? And so I was like a sponge. And the cool thing about coaches and football people in general is that if they think you're asking questions because you genuinely care and love the game, coaches are the most open and honest people I've ever met. Giving. Like, if you want to, you got counter gap up there. If I asked you a question about counter, you'd light up and start telling me all about it, right? And if the flip side is if they think you're trying to get at them for something, they'll shut right down. And I think because I was a coach's son and loved the game, over 20 years at the NFL Network, man, I developed so many relationships around the league with head coaches, general managers, but even more importantly, coaches, scouts, lower level guys, trying to learn the game of football. And at the end of the day, what it taught me was different philosophy. There's no one right way or one wrong way to build a team or a franchise at every level. You got to kind of do it your way. And I played for, like I said, Belichick and Parcells, and learned from them a lot. And I was around a lot of really successful people who did things differently. So I was able to kind of process in my mind, like, if I ever get the opportunity, where do I want to be heading? What's my philosophy? How do I feel about certain ways to build an organization or a franchise? And so that gave me an opportunity to really kind of look at it. And when the Raiders thing came along, I felt like I had a pretty defined vision in my mind about where we wanted to go.
I said to you when I was texting you some notes for the show today that I'd once been told about parenting that it was this thing where, you can read all the books and you can talk to people who are parents, but until you're there, you're not really going to know how to do it. It's a singular experience.
Yeah.
So you felt prepared for that Raiders job to become the general manager. But when you actually stepped into the job, boy, what were the unknowns? What were the things that you just didn't know how to prepare for, or that you were going to have to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, the unknowns were big picture. I was good philosophically, but I knew, like, you got to know your own strengths and weaknesses. Okay, I kind of knew where I wanted to. We were inheriting a 4-win team, oldest team in the league, no athletic ability. We needed to upgrade. I knew what we needed to do in my mind, but I also knew that where my weaknesses were just kind of organizationally. How does the NFL work? How does it run? I needed a real strong director of college and a director of pro scouting, and I needed a real strong salary cap guy. And in my interview with Gruden and Mark Davis and all, that's what I said. I said, look, you got to. I have, even though I've been in all these buildings, I don't know what the schedule on a daily basis. Now I have all this stuff from other teams, and I'm looking at it. But as far as going through it on a daily basis, I'm going to need help so that I don't hurt our team. So mechanically, how does the year work? And so I was fortunate I got some really strong guys, and again, I'm a big believer that leadership drives everything in this world, and that as a leader you gotta identify your own weaknesses and find ways to make those strengths, and to do that you got to do it with other people, So I kind of felt like I needed some strength around me, and I couldn't be insecure about that. You got to bring in the right guys and let them do their jobs. So that's kind of how I identified and attacked it. And I'll be really honest with you, like the first year and a half, I kind of felt like I was drinking water through a fire hose, and I was there 16, 17, 18 hours a day. I'd get in there at 5 in the morning, and I still don't know what time Gruden got there because he was always there before me. But it took a while to slow down and to get to the point where I understood it and could distribute all the things the proper way on a daily basis. But man, the one thing I think I learned, Kev, is that in hindsight, is the job never ended, ever. Like, you were never on vacation. I mean, I was down the Jersey Shore one year. We got like a week and a half, 2 weeks where, right before training camp, and evaluation's a 365-day-a-year job. And I remember I was sitting on the beach with my wife drinking a Budweiser, and the phone rang, and the phone always rang. Like every friggin' day, the phone rang, and it was an agent who had Richie Incognito, a veteran NFL lineman. We needed linemen. He was ready to work out. He was a former Pro Bowler. I jumped on a plane right back to Vegas, right off the beach, right back to Vegas, forget vacation, whatever. We signed him. It was just kind of like every day, or God forbid, and we had a couple 3 or 4 in the morning calls too that weren't very good. But that's what I learned, is that the job of a GM in the NFL never ends. It's 24/7.
It's interesting when Kevin Stefanski came on this podcast a couple months ago. I asked him, I said, Coach, your 2024 season ended the first week of January. When did your 2025 season begin? And he said the next day.
Yeah.
So, to your point, right?
It's never ending for the head coach and a GM.
Yeah. I think a lot of fans, when they think about the role of a general manager, 2 things stand out. They think about the draft and signing players, whether draft/free agency. And then they think about roster construction when you go through that process to get down to your final 53. You had some real nice success in the draft with some hidden gems, guys like Maxx Crosby. Why do you think the draft is such an inexact science. He lasts till the fourth round. He comes out of a fairly small school. I think it was Eastern Michigan. And then obviously there are these big top end players who we sometimes miss on. What makes the draft such a difficult process?
Bluntly, I would tell you that we screwed up a lot of high end players. Bottom line, and I would say that where you could probably, as a coach, empathize is that the mistakes you don't want to make as a coach or a GM are the preventable ones. Like if you're a coach, what's a preventable mistake? It's pre-snap penalty. It's mismanagement of the clock. It's things that you can control in practices leading up to the game to help you win a game. Preventable mistakes.
Yeah, we call them self-inflicted wounds, SIWs.
Exactly. Yeah, right? And I had one of the best coaches in the history of the game tell me like 20 years ago, I asked him, I said, Coach, how many teams do you worry about on a weekly basis, daily? He said, I don't know, 5 or 6. I said, why so few? He said, the other 25 will eliminate themselves. And he is right. And I lived it. And we made some preventable mistakes in the scouting world with the Raiders. So, when you start talking about guys with history of injury in college, guys with some off-the-field issues in college, guys with a position change from what you saw on college tape to where you think he's going to play in the NFL, they're all preventable, and we made a bunch of those. Now, the flip side is when we got into the fourth round, fifth, sixth, the final day of the draft and undrafted free agency, we were really good. And I look back a while ago, I think on the day 3, we had 10 picks in my 3 years, and 7 of the 10 of them became starters on day 3. Guys like Maxx Crosby, Hunter Renfrow. I mean, they were both 4th round picks, 5th round picks. Excuse me, Hunter was a 5th. Nate Hobbs was a 5th. We had 4 undrafted free agents make our team in 2019, 2 of which became all-pro, right? And 2 of them became starters, which was kind of unheard of. So the basis for our 2021 playoff team was formed in 2019 with the late round guys. And yeah, it was good. Josh Jacobs was the 1st round pick, home run. But we missed some other guys. But these guys, and I could go on for hours on this. But the simple answer on day 3 is kind of what we picked good football players. That was it. We didn't get complicated. Like the Maxx Crosby thing was, the reason he was a 4th round pick was he had a drinking problem. And the whole league knew it. And I can talk about it because he's talked about it now. We all know. So he had a problem his rookie year. He identified it. We identified it. His agent did. And he went into a clinic, and it was a heart-wrenching deal, and he handled it with his girlfriend, who's now his wife, Rachel. But that's why, to answer your question, that's why I went to 4th round. Gruden and I both love this kid's tape. He flew around like a madman, just like he does now. He filled out. From an evaluation perspective, he could bend like Gumby. People don't understand how important bend is to an edge rusher. This guy could frickin' bend, man. So his get off was good, but his bend was elite. And he could dip under tackles. He could explode up inside with that long pole. He's pretty amazing, but so was Hunter Renfrow in the 5th. Hunter Renfrow had 103 catches his 3rd year. But the bottom line is, when we got into that 3rd day in free agency, we were just looking for good, solid football players that we could plug in and let them go compete, and they did.
So Hunter Renfrow, you look at him, right? Like if he's walking down the Ocean City boardwalk in the middle of summer in a crowd of people, you're not picking him out as an NFL player.
He looks like a 40-year-old accountant.
So why do guys like Hunter Renfrow make it in the NFL? An individual who maybe didn't win the genetic lottery, isn't blessed with the greatest measurables, and yet some of these other guys who do have those things
Yeah.
are unable to make it? Is it all the intangibles, playbook, scheme fit, your own personal drive, etc.? Is that the stuff that sort of separates players at times?
That's a piece of it. That's a big piece of it. Hunter's intangibles were off the charts, but people underestimated his natural physical ability. Just because he didn't run a great 40 doesn't mean that in that close separation area that a slot receiver needs to win, he wasn't elite, because he was. And the cool thing for us that year is we coached at the Senior Bowl in 2019, and we got to see Hunter on the other team every day. And I was like, shit, I mean, this guy, you want to talk about a young player that understood how to create and maintain leverage and separation, was elite. I mean, he knew how to set up a guy that on paper was a better athlete than him. He knew how to create leverage. He knew how to separate. I told Derek Carr, our quarterback, after we drafted Hunter, I called him. I just said, you're going to love this kid. And he said, why? I said, because on third down, when they're bringing the house, you're going to trust that this kid wins. And you're just going to put it, and you're going to put it where he's supposed to be, and he's going to be there. After the season ended, Derek came up to me, and he had remembered the conversation. He was like, Mike, this kid is different. He's special. So that's kind of the Hunter Renfrow story. But when you go through all these kids, they have a little more talent than we all wanted to get. Like, the reason they fall through most of the time is either they're a little shorter, their arms aren't quite as long, they run a tick too slow than what you're supposed to run for that position, their length. You know, you got all these measurables, but at the end of the day, it's like, who can frickin' play?
Yeah.
You know, and Hunter could play. We took a kid in the 5th round in 21, Nate Hobbs. He just got paid about $50 million by the Packers. 5th round. Like, Nate Hobbs was a baller. And I wasn't sure if he was going to be a nickel or an outside corner, but he was a baller. So I think we did a much better job with the guys that we just trusted could play, as opposed to all the projections up high.
Interesting. We had a receiver at OC High School who graduated 2021 who was about 5'7" and 145 pounds, made first team All-State. You couldn't cover him in a phone booth, man. Yeah. But he just, if he was walking down the street, in a million years, you wouldn't peg him as a football player. And like all the things that you said, man, plus the heart and the determination. I think the other element of being a general manager people often talk about is roster construction. And here we are about to kick off the season in the NFL, and they've just gone through that process, whittling from 90 down to 53. There are some obvious cuts that you make, and there are some ones that probably take a whole room full of people having discussions late into the night about whether or not we're going to keep this guy over that guy. When you get down to those final 4, 5, 6 players on the roster, what are some of the things that separate the ones who make it from the ones who don't?
Some vehement conversations from position coaches versus special teams coaches versus the scouts, right? I mean, that's really lively conversations. You know, the offensive line coach wants that 10th offensive lineman, and his arguments are, trust me, you know, valid and loud. And then you got the special teams coach screaming that the 10th offensive lineman can't cover a kickoff or a punt, and we need another defensive back or wide out or whomever that conversation is about. You know, you got the scouts chiming in like, hey, we got to keep this kid because if we expose him to waivers, he's going to be gone, and he's a developmental guy. You got the head coach who's privately thinking, I got to win football games now. You got the GM thinking, I'm trying to build for forever. So there's all these contrasting thoughts, you know, and I used to just say to the scouts, you know, the bottom line is we got to do whatever's best for the building, right? What's best for the Raiders? What's best for the building? No matter how painful it gets. We had a special teams coach named Rich Bisaccia who became our interim head coach when Gruden got fired. And Richie did an amazing job as the head coach. And he's also like the dean of the special teams coaches. And Richie and I met when we were both in our teens, working the Joe Namath football camp as counselors. We were still in college. And so we've been friends for almost 50 years. And it was really good for me to have a guy on that staff that I trusted like I did him. And I also trusted that he wouldn't be overly selfish on the special team side. So there's an old adage that the GM has to evaluate the evaluators. And that means both his coaches and his scouts. And at the end of the day, you got to do what's right for the building.
Interesting. Mike, this has been a fantastic conversation. I want to get you out of here by asking you this. Through all your different football experiences, and again, you've seen the game from so many different perspectives, I think that your big picture view of football is very unique. There aren't a whole lot of guys that have had your perspective as a player, an analyst, a general manager, executive, etc. What's been most special to you? What is the thing that when you think about your football life means the most to you?
I think there's two things. It's a kind of easy question, this one. It's kind of like game day. I don't care if it's Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Whatever game day is special and different. As an announcer, I used to love, like they used to say, well, you can do the studio show this week. I'm like, hell no. Send me to a game. Because I wanted to be around the players and the coaches. I wanted to be 3 hours before the game. I want to walk the field. I want to smell the grass. I want to talk to the coaches. To me, even if I'm just an announcer, that's a really important day. I'm nervous. I'm into it. I know what the struggle is on both sides. I respect what's gone in to get to that day, right? When I became the GM of the Raiders, game day became times 10. I'd throw up in my mouth 10 times a day before kickoff. And one of the most rewarding moments of my life is walking in the locker room after a win. There's nothing like it. You know that. At every level. Every freaking level, it's the same. So that's point number one. And I think point number two, what I'll always take away are the relationships. And again, it doesn't matter what level. Like, it's blood, sweat, and tears. And when you win a game, you're hugging and crying. When you lose a game, you're hugging and crying. And only the guys in the building understand what you went through. And nobody else really can. And it's a special experience, and it's a deeper relationship you develop, and a respect that you develop than when you're in commercial real estate and you just say, hey, I'll see you tomorrow. So those are the two things, Coach.
Yeah. We always tell our players, it's really hard to win a football game. The amount of work that you have to put in to win a football game requires an incredible amount of dedication and passion.
Yep.
Well, congratulations on everything that you've accomplished, and you're still doing some radio work right now, aren't you?
Yeah, I do some NFL games for Westwood One Radio, and I'll do 8 or 10 of those games, or NFL games, which is, to me, again, is really fun because I get to watch the tape, take notes, put my charts together, and get out to the game site and see some of the coaches on both teams that I know, and so that's really important to me. And I work for this company, Sumer Sports, as a consultant, which is kind of analytically driven, and it's opened my eyes a little bit to where football's going with AI and analytics. And I put the football grades in for certain things they do, and these engineers take over, and it's freaking amazing what they can do. Like, if I could show you, Coach, what they do for game planning, it's mind-boggling.
That's fascinating. It really is amazing how the technology has changed the game. You grew up in the era of were you pre VHS tapes? Or were you?
Yes.
Okay.
I was 8 years old, 9 years old with my dad, and I was doing all the people above a certain age, younger, they don't understand why it's called cut-ups.
Right.
We would take the 16 millimeter film and actually splice it together with other. Like my dad would say to me when I was 10. Take these 3 films and get all the weak side bootlegs and put them together for me. I want to show the team. And I'd be 10 years old going through 3 games, pulling it, and maybe there's only 6 of them in 3 games. You splice them together, put them on a little reel, and he's showing them to his team. And then you had to splice them back into where they belonged and send them to the next high school.
Yep.
So these tapes were snapping all over the place because you got all these guys splicing and resplicing, and there was only a finite amount of cut-ups you could do back in the day. Now you can do an infinite number of projects.
Crazy. You type a couple keywords into your software program and boom, there it all is for you. It's amazing.
Let me give you one example that blew my mind the other day, this Sumer Sports. Like, I asked them to show me something that Coach would appreciate. So they sent me this question that they sent to what they call the Sumer brain, their AI brain, right? And the question went something like, take Tampa Bay's defense from the last 4 regular season games of last season, develop a game plan based on and identify what their fronts and coverages were on first down, second down, and third down. Develop a game plan from the success rate with each front and coverage versus certain personnel groups and spit out a game plan. And I'm like, if done properly, if you're identifying versus 11, 12, 13, 21 personnel, et cetera, if you're going to do that project, it would take probably 2 quality control guys, maybe 2 14-hour days to get it done properly, right? 90 seconds later, it spits out every front and coverage for Tampa Bay in their last 4 games, broken out by down and distance. And I'm going, oh my God. Like, if it's correct, like, I don't know who's inputting all the football information, but if it's correct, you just took this mountain of work and whittled it down to here, and you hand it to the coach on Monday, and you say, here it is. Like, now you can develop your game plan.
It's a new world. It's
crazy.
It's a brave new world.
Yeah.
Mike, thanks so much. This was a great conversation. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure, Coach. Thank you.
All right, so that's our Call Sheet Daily here for Whiteboard Wednesday. Tremendous conversation here with Mike Mayock. Tomorrow, boy, the NFL kicks off tomorrow. Eagles, Cowboys from the link in Philly. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And also tomorrow is our college football show. So we'll recap some of what we saw in week 1 and preview the weekend's college football slate. So for Mike Mayock, this is Coach Kevin Smith. Have a great day, everyone.